I'll tell you, every time I'm like buying nail or something though, I always think of tetanus and I always think of Jefferson in Midnight Whispers.
Really?
Always,
I
every single
always
time.
think of Bart
Oh,
and If There
that's
Be
interesting. It's
Thorns.
interesting.
Because he gets one too.
He does. Yeah, for every reason though, it was always Jefferson that like stuck with me, and it still does to this day. If I see a rusty nail, I'm like
I think of
tetanus,
Bart every
Jefferson.
time. Every time I see one.
Hi there, and welcome to another episode of 411 Pop Culture, where real people talk about really everything. I'm Justin, this is Danielle, and tonight we are going to watch the fourth installment of the Dawn series, Midnight Whispers. Are you excited?
I am super excited. You know, most of the time, and I will tell you, when I was reading the books, I didn't really care for the kids' stories, and you know that.
Mm-hmm.
But with these adaptations, I've actually really loved them, and as I've reread the books as an adult now, like an older adult, I have really been enjoying that side of the story more so than I did when I was younger.
Well, and yeah, I felt like Gates of Paradise was one of the best of the Steele series. I really did enjoy Hidden Jewel, and I'm looking forward to Midnight Whispers. That's probably the one I'm most familiar with in terms of, I just read that a couple months ago and followed up with Darkest Hours, which I still hope that they might do. I heard they might, that they've like contracted for it or whatever, so hopefully. But no, I'm really looking forward to this one, and I do think that it was smart that they kind of did the Landry series before they did this one, because you know, like we've talked about before, I read the Cutler series before I read the Castile series. You did vice versa.
Yep.
But we both read it before we did the Landry series.
Correct.
So I'm sure you felt the same way as me. When I read Dawn and then got to Gates of Paradise in the Castile series, I was sort of like, oh, this is what happened to Dawn.
Yes.
And I'm sure for you, you were sort of like, oh, this is what happened to Heaven when you got to the Cutler series. So I just assumed when we got to the Landry series, as always, everybody's spoilers, but I just assumed, I was like, oh, the same thing's going to happen to Ruby. So when it didn't, I was pleasantly surprised. But I think it's good that Lifetime split it up so it's not so formulaic.
Yeah, and I was pleasantly surprised reading Ruby when it changed.
Me too. I was so happy. I remember being like relieved. Oh, the last page is done and she made it. Like, yes. So, but I am looking forward to this one. I mean, it's sad that we've lost some characters now, some of our favorite parts, but there's some good juicy stuff in Midnight Whispers in terms of Fern. I'm curious to see how they develop her, how Christy's going to be. But we won't keep you in further suspense. We're looking forward to it. Hopefully, though, it's not going to end up pulling like Flowers in the Attic, The Origin Part 4, where that series was so good, I thought. 1, 2, and 3. And then 4 really dropped the ball. Yeah. Like, and I don't care about like certain changes, but characters that are like major plot points of later novels need to be there. And what they did to the John Amos character, it blew my mind away. And I haven't really been able to go back and watch it and enjoy it.
You haven't.
So I'm hopeful that we're here at another fourth installment of another really good series. So I'm hopeful that it's good. But we won't keep any more suspense. As always, if you like what you're seeing, please give us a thumbs up. Please comment below. And please consider subscribing. It really does help a lot. And let's go ahead and get started now for Midnight Whispers.
Okay, so Brec Bassinger, she's going to be in it, which is good. Like I said, that was one thing too. The Landry series made the right choice. And even though obviously they're much younger actors, having them play the roles throughout was the right. You could have an emotional connection to them.
Yeah.
I remember in Gates of Paradise, that was my only complaint about that one, is that there was no connection to that Heaven, to that Logan.
Correct.
You know. I did think the Fanny did a good job, though, the actress that played the older Fanny.
Yeah. Well, I think even in the Flowers in the Attic series, it didn't bother us as much because we knew some of the actors.
That's true. Plus, there were such huge age jumps.
Yeah.
Again, I thought the Petals in the Wind cast should have been in If There Be Thorns for those emotional confrontations. And then it really would have worked for the fourth one to have Jason Lewis and the actors. But
your birthday brunch is right now. And we don't mess with family tradition. Okay.
yeah, she looks like a Christy.
I'm right now. I'm hit or miss about her. I don't know. Jimmy.
Nah. Jefferson. I couldn't think.
I know. I was just like, what is his name? That's what I wanted to say too.
Yeah, it's really.
Oh, really? See, I mean, she does kind of look exactly what I thought. I wouldn't say exactly what I thought Christy was like, but sweet, blonde.
It might not. It's probably throwing me off because Dawn still looks very young.
Well, sure.
Even though they're supposed to have aged her, it's.
Sure.
Pay attention. His wife, Laura Jane, Dawn's mother, recently passed away from a stroke.
Oh, that's. I mean, they changed that.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember her having a pretty big moment at the party where she kind of was like losing it, which, you know, they didn't really do in the last one. Remember, I thought for a second when they were revealing Clara Jean's heritage, I thought they were going to start with Dolores who's losing it stuff, and they didn't really do that, which I thought would connect to this, but instead they're just having it go right to the point.
Yeah.
True.
Well, I mean, this is what we get with adaptations, and I'm not concerned about it.
No, sure. I mean, that's pretty much the only scene she has in Midnight Whispers.
Staying in family house.
More pink balloons on each table, please.
Oh, was that Betty Ann?
Yeah.
I hate pink balloons.
Yeah, twins.
No, you can't. You're just stupid to help us.
I thought they were a little bit older in the books.
Yeah.
Like, it's sort of like Christy, the twins, Jefferson's young, you know.
Back to the house to get ready.
What is the implication there?
I don't know.
I think I know. Were they trying to set it up that, like, isn't that where Dawn and Jimmy
I
die?
mean, I'm wondering, yeah.
About the song. You practiced that to death.
I'm laughing because Dawn looks like a kid who used to dress up in her mom's closet, like, because she still looks so young. I mean, they didn't even try to age her at all except with the clothes. So that I'm a little disappointed with that, but
I mean, I don't see that's funny. I feel like you and I are having completely different reactions to this right now. I'm fine with it. I think we're just supposed to use our imagination. Like, what are they gonna do? You know, I feel like when you try and age, it's almost always overdone. Like they'll put wrinkles or something, and she'll end up looking completely different than what this actress would look like. Remember, she's only supposed to be about 32, 33 here.
True.
Well, yeah, she'd be 32. She's 16 years older. You know, she was 17, 16, 17 when she had Christy.
He wanted
Yeah.
to see you. He thought you was gonna just have a party.
Okay, go look at the monkey.
My Dasha, husband.
I'll concede a little bit that in the Landry series, they did age them a little. You
Yeah.
could tell a little. But I'm noticing with Jimmy here, he looks a little older. But, like, again, I think we're just supposed to suspend our disbelief a little bit. But again, 32, what does 32 really look like, you know?
Yeah.
Although I feel like they completely changed the voice of Dawn, the singing voice.
I was thinking it sounded...
It sounded more what I feel like they were always trying to kind of convey in the books. But I never imagined that. We kind of talked about this. I never imagined that in the books. But what they did in this adaptation before this one was what I always imagined for her singing voice.
Mm-hmm. I like how they kept Philip's scar.
Mm.
So proud.
For what?
Used to say, family together, family forever.
Speaking of again, where is Ormond? I know that he was here for this party and all that with his new wife and with Gavin, who did, I guess, showed up alone. Again, I guess I thought when they got Jesse Metcalf that it was because they needed somebody who could play in the later series. So I was surprised they didn't utilize him.
Behave yourself. It's Betty Ann. Your wife is standing right there.
My true beauty.
What's up with Uncle Philip? He's practically pawing Mother.
I feel like it was always kind of subtext in the novel with Bet's jealousy of Dawn because of her knowing something was off with Philip. But I like that it looks like we got that moment there that's emphasized. She's clearly got a problem. In the book, I mean, it's there, but it's like almost subtext. Here, I'm hoping to see it a little bit more front and center.
Well, I'm surprised Jimmy didn't do anything.
Well, remember, Dawn always kind of shields him from it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I guess I never thought about it in the books as somebody sabotaging the hotel.
It's possible, yeah.
But I do like that they're adding this level.
Well, we don't know yet. I don't know what's going on down here. Maybe I feel like Philip's going to have something down here that Jimmy's going to find, and it's going to lead to fire. Yeah, I don't think he was doing anything to sabotage it. Look at, see? It's his secret thing.
You're right.
But that's an interesting twist. I think I like it. For the same reasons you were going to like the sabotage thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a domino effect. Which then also explains why Bet is so awful to Christy.
Yeah.
I love it. That's very Lifetime. Another reason why you would you could see why Lifetime would be the one to do some of these adaptations.
You know what I think it is? Like right here in this scene, I feel comfortable with Christy as she is cast. I think it's because they haven't aged Jimmy and Dawn enough to connect with Christy yet, because I'm still looking at Jimmy and Dawn as being very young.
So you see them as like the same age.
Correct, but now like seeing this,
you see that she's
yes.
See, for me, I feel like we're supposed to, it's the trade-off. We're supposed to suspend our disbelief. We know that they're all about the same age.
Yeah.
So I've kind of been going in with that mindset. So for me, that's why. But I do get what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I think she's doing great so far. I mean, I haven't seen very much of her, but she does seem how I kind of pictured Christy.
Yeah, and I think I'm still connected to Dawn and Jimmy, which is why I am still loving that they kept the same actors. So, you know, let me give it some time. I'm sure I'll like come around. I love Trish though.
Yeah, she looks. Yeah, she sounds great. Looks great. Yeah. The right energy. They got from Trish.
100%. Well, this is so wait. The last one kind of ended in '87, was it?
Oh right, yeah.
So this is 16 years later.
No, it wouldn't be 16 years later.
Oh, it'd be 10.
Not even 10. I'd say it's supposed to be out early 90s right now.
Okay.
I mean, technically she was born in 74, I think, according to this. So she's 16, it'd be about 1990. But I do feel like the age kind of fluctuated a little bit in the last one, so I'm saying 90 to 93, somewhere in there.
Burn.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I think everyone saw that. What's your guys' deal? Aren't you like brother and sister?
You said nephew. Always getting confused.
You're such a troublemaker. We're related by name.
Okay, so far so good.
Yep. I love it. I'm loving the music.
How are you? I'd be careful.
I think the casting for Gavin was done well.
Yeah, now see, that's funny how you were kind of feeling about Christy. I thought he was looking a little too young, but seeing them together, I can see the kind of match.
Well, he is supposed to be a little bit older.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. He looked a little younger
than
I thought. But now seeing them together, it's a match, I think. I can see it. Or at least the chemistry between the two.
Trisha said she knows people at Juilliard. Can you believe that?
Oh, I wonder if they're going to... You know, the fire happened in the book, you know, a few weeks later, but I'm wondering if it's going to be... I think
it's going to happen tonight.
Sure. I mean, from an adaptation standpoint, that would make a lot of sense.
Come on, let's all outside. Come on. He's in here.
You know, I would have liked more of a confrontation in the novels between Jimmy and Philip, because Dawn really did kind of shelter Jimmy from all that Philip was doing and had done.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to see a moment like that, because now that I'm remembering the novels and thinking back, that is something I wish kind of had happened, more of a confrontation between the two of them.
I think she shielded him in the book because remember, like, Jimmy in the books was very, he would get in fights and those things. I think that's why she shielded him in the books.
Sure. Well, that's kind of why I wish she hadn't, because I know Jimmy's explosive, and I would have liked him to hit Philip at least once. Not that I'm like the least violent person ever, but just with all that Philip did. Okay, so I guess it didn't happen at the party.
Good.
Well, and they're smart that we do need a bit more of them than we get in the novel.
Yeah.
I mean, in the novel you can have a little of them because it's from Christy's point of view.
Oh, I think it's one.
Right there, I can see her looking a little younger than them somehow.
Slightly.
That's fair.
I don't know, there was this promo shot or a shot that the actress who plays Dawn, I think Brec Bassinger, I always feel like I'm going to say her name wrong, so I never say it. But I feel like there's a shot where she had this like really big hair, and I guess I thought that's what they were going to do for Midnight Whispers, to make her look a little older. This is such a change. I'm not opposed to it, but he really is so indifferent to her.
Yeah.
And she really does put on blinders in the novel. So it's interesting. I'm ambivalent. I'm ambivalent about it. Uh-oh. Maybe he is going to do something.
So concerned right now.
Hey, stop, do it. Get the hell away from me, man. You're crazy. You have no idea.
Oh, wow. Oh, see, I'm wondering, so he did that, but I don't know if he was intending to kill Jimmy, but it looks like Bet is going to be the one to maybe set the fire. I don't
Maybe,
know.
yeah. I don't know.
Again, I know so many fans out there are going to be having an issue with this kind of a change. I kind of think it makes it a little bit more exciting. You know, it's very dramatic. Oh, wow. He did.
Jimmy? Jimmy, wake up.
Oh.
Only showed that nozzle, so Bet was
Yeah.
looking at that.
No, Jefferson, it's fine. Jefferson.
I remember this part being so terrible in the novels,
Right,
too.
yeah.
Like, just them not knowing what's going on.
Where's Mom and Dad? What?
That's
Feels very B.C. Andrews,
well,
yes!
the 87 version.
Yes.
The music and that statue look. Which is interesting because I do remember when reading Midnight Whispers, there were a lot of pieces of dialogue that I thought were very much lifted from Flowers of the Attic, the book.
And another thing, where's Ormond?
Right.
Losing Jimmy and Gould. There were two people.
It's really surprising just that he
Yeah.
wasn't then again in this.
Each other.
I remember thinking that Aunt Bet was very plain looking, though.
Right. Well, by this time she wasn't. When she first came on, this is what I was saying last time. When she first came on, she was very plain. And I think that's why Philip kind of subconsciously chose her, because he knew he could make her then look however she wanted. There are certain actors, like John Lithgow has said, he's like a tabula rasa. He has a very plain face, but you can make him look 1,000 different ways.
Yeah.
Bet's like that. She was very plain, but he kept making her look more and more like Dawn.
Mm.
So I'm like, oh, they jumped right to it. They jumped right to it. They just skipped over it.
You can't live in this house with your brother alone, and we need somewhere to go, so it worked out perfectly.
Well, I want Jefferson and I to live with Bronson.
He's a very busy man, Christy.
Interestingly, though, I mean, I did love Christy usually kind of would always snap back at Aunt Bet, who was in constant denial of everything. But I'm wondering how the big payoff in Midnight Whispers was Christy finally getting Aunt Bet to see everything. Like, because you waited and waited
Right.
and waited. The whole runaway thing happens. She comes back. She finally has to get Bet to see, and Bet does, and kind of crumbles and breaks down. It seems like Bet already kind of knows from this one, so I'm
Right.
wondering how they're gonna
This is different.
have that payoff.
It's generational.
Like a scorecard between you and Christy?
Hey, if she's the princess, I'm the daughter of the next.
Oh, no, keep off.
Well, that's good. They're setting up because Fern does call her the little princess a lot in Midnight
Mhm.
Whispers, especially when they get to the meadow stuff, which is why she's so kind of horrible to
How I
Christy.
grieve is my own business. Well, nasty one. So, your days might be numbered.
Although I did always kind of wish that, like, I always wanted, like, Dawn, Ruby,
What are you doing?
Kathy to all
Those are
meet.
Jefferson's
At the same time, I always thought it would be cool to have, like, Christy, Pearl, Annie all get together for a
Mhm.
drink
Don't
sometime.
do anything. I'll be right
Because it's true, after this, you don't get a follow-up. Like, they're the follow-up.
Yeah.
I know. This has been a tough time. You lost your parents, and we lost the hotel and everything we own.
But I remembered always feeling kind of like even more of a betrayal, because I feel like Dawn was always pretty decent to Betty Ann.
Yes.
So to see how Betty Ann ended up, which they sort of did in the last adaptation, they had that sort of moment on the beach.
You can pick what you'd like to keep, and we'll just get rid of the rest.
Yeah, you're right. Dawn was always nice to her.
Yeah.
So she was nasty in Midnight Whispers.
Mhm.
The whole bedroom thing was even worse because originally didn't Jefferson and the twin boys share a room and
Richard.
then they had to move him back out of there?
Well, yeah, because like Richard was like constantly putting down Jefferson, and
Mm-hmm.
then they kind of try to sabotage Jefferson, like dirty shoes or something. But they, Christy was always smart and always had his back and figured it out. Okay, yeah, I remember a lot of dinner scenes.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
And how did the move go?
No, she never said that. She called them like trash.
I think you should apologize.
I never said that. Our parents are the most wonderful people in the entire world. And nothing you say will ever change that.
I wanted you to apologize.
Why do you always side with her?
Again, they're coming at such a more passionate, angry, point of view, but I do like that because I do remember him always kind of defending Christy. It's because of horrible reasons, but it's like those weird little things in the book where like at least somebody's kind of defending her, but then when you find out why, it's just horrible. Creep alert.
Yep. Well, yeah, she used to sneak out to the grave. That's where she overheard Philip.
Correct, yeah. Oh, so it's 1991. There we go.
Good.
No, there you go.
Please,
I do remember Christy, they were having that talk at the beginning, but I remember Christy being a little bit more curious about the Philip relationship that Dawn had with Philip in high school before.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I remember Fern kind of instigating her curiosity about it.
Right. I think you're right.
Oh, and I remember Lady Chatterley's lover, the novel being a thing.
Don't you walk away from me. You will not leave this house past 8 p.m. without my permission. This isn't about me. This is about your drunk husband blabbering on about my mother. And drive any car.
Oh.
Don't you ever talk to me like that again. Ask your wife.
What I was about to say was, I even though she didn't quite say that yet in the novels, I love it. It's like instant satisfying to have her just say it. But ouch.
Oh, Philip.
happy. I know on beds can be harsh sometimes. I'll talk to her. We'll make it right.
I remember this just being so horrible in the novels. Like, even, I don't know if you can rate one over the other. This, I just remember being at the worst for me. Like, reading this, I felt violated reading it.
Oh, yeah. Ugh. It's horrific seeing it. In the novels, it was, she just lost her parents. That just ignored it.
I mean, just trying to imagine that after the trauma of losing your parents,
Yeah.
and you have these two adults come in that are so messed up. And again, as we've said through all these adaptations, it's not like I want it to happen or anything, but I'm curious as to what made them decide to just not have it happen. Like,
Right.
you know, didn't end up happening to Dawn. It hasn't happened to Christy, which is like, I'm glad for, but at the same time, it's like I wanted it to happen. But it really does,
It downplays the really horrible things that
correct.
happen.
Yeah, correct.
You're like, oh, yeah, that was uncomfortable and weird and awkward, and you had to run off to, but that's not really what happened.
Right, exactly. Like, how horrible it was mattered,
Yeah.
As we started to say with the first adaptation, Dawn was the one everything bad happened to. Christy, everything bad that every other one, Annie got away, Pearl got away, Ruby got away.
Yeah.
Dawn and Christy never did.
No.
And I feel like that made their story not more important, but valid and important.
What do you want?
He's the right age.
Dear Michael.
The one and only. And you are? A lot of shysters out there, believe me. I play them all on stage.
Jefferson's face.
I don't think I'll see the money until I'm at least 18.
I remember that's pretty much how it played
Yeah.
out in the novel. And it's just as depressing, but
I have an idea.
real somehow.
But we need to find a phone box.
Hi, this is Trisha. I'm Gary B. Otherwise, see you in September.
I can't remember all the details, but I'm surprised they didn't make Trish the Guardian or Bronson at the time. Like, of all the people, I would be
Right.
surprised they did make Philip and Betty
Hey,
the Guardians.
I'm stuck in New York.
I was just saying from like an acting standpoint, how crazy it must have been to play those kinds of scenes, like the two of them. Like,
Yeah.
but again, I think they're both doing a really good job too. As particularly Philip, you know, I think he's the whole from the beginning.
Yep.
Through this, he had the right charm at the beginning, the right creepiness throughout, the obsessive side.
Mm-hmm.
He did a good job.
Yeah. I was just thinking, like, wow, like he did a good job.
I remember being really stressed out reading these parts
Yes.
to it, like the terminal. and
Uh-huh.
I think she loses Jefferson for a minute.
Yep.
Christy!
Didn't their luggage get stolen too?
Mhm.
I'd be glad there was something to eat.
We'll get you a snack. My parents have no idea where I am. I hope you have a plan, because I don't.
Are we gonna see your parents?
Right.
Part. And now I dragged you.
Speaking of the Meadows, though, I do remember in the books, I feel like it was sort of like the way Annie and Luke Jr., I think it was, they always romanticized Farley from their childhood. If I remember correctly, speaking of the Meadows, the two of them always sort of romanticized the Meadows since their childhood. But it seemed like in this, she was almost just learning about it for the first
Right.
time with Dawn at the beginning.
Look at this.
Definitely weird.
Yeah, you were commenting, listen. I'm glad to see it.
It's like a
Like,
gang of preschoolers had their way with the ancestors. I think it's cool. Old folks needed some cheering up, wouldn't you say?
She like reminds me of Kathy Bates somehow.
sure, I see it.
Yeah.
Christy Longchamp.
I can't remember. Somebody commented. I can't remember what part. She was also in the Landry series, though. I think she was in Pearl the Mist, they said, if I remember correctly. Sorry if I'm misquoting.
Welcome, all of you.
But I always really enjoy that when they have
Yeah.
the same kind of actors come back.
You've been traveling a long
It's almost like a
time. You must
VC
be
Andrews
starving.
company of
Is there
actors.
something in
Yes.
the icebox for these hungry lions? I like the horns. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Good night. Good night.
So cute.
Mhm.
It's a good Jefferson.
Sure. Well, in these scenes in particular, you're seeing everything come to life, I think, the most from the book, which has been the great part of the series, is
What are you
the most come to life, I feel like. Even with some differences here and there,
You can wear my t-shirt.
it's come to life, and I like it. I love
Oh,
it.
absolutely. But there was really a lot at that house that happened. I mean, dinner, like you said, lots of dinners where they're just
Right.
mean and the pranks and the
Yeah.
everything. It was
It's almost
just-
overwhelming. Like,
Yes. So terrible.
so I'm glad they kind of stripped it down to its core, and
Me too. Because it is. It's just horrible to read. I mean, we love it, but it's horrific how terrible they all
Yeah.
are to them.
and yet again, I won't be surprised if they end up doing sort of the Meadows, the origin,
Yeah.
whatever.
I really hope they do.
And I feel like there's been a few people out there that really want it to happen too, and really a lot does happen in
Oh, yeah.
that novel.
Well, and she just made a reference to Grandpa Booth.
Exactly, which
So,
made
yeah.
me think of it.
Yeah.
Exactly. If I remember correctly, that's the
Mhm.
son.
Yep.
Right now, you
Well, and Christy was so traumatized by
Yeah.
this point too, but you had to keep together for Jefferson, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe it's something too about the fourth. I just felt like this like sadness this whole one, and I feel like it's always like that about the fourth book,
Yeah.
where you realize the novels are coming to their end, and at the same time something's being set up for the prequel. Like, Darkest Hour takes place at the Meadows, so I remember Midnight Whispers taking so much at the Meadows, not being surprised.
Well, I think we're also saying, I mean, Dawn and Jimmy died.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
so
there's
it's
such a
just a
negative,
sad book.
and that's how all the fourth books are. Whether
Mhm.
Ruby goes missing, but like the one twin died, and Heaven died. Like it's so sad in the rest of the story.
Who's Homer? This was about he likes to climb the trees.
Yeah, I can't remember if ever it comes out and says it, but Homer, I'm pretty sure, is Luther and Charlotte's child.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Oh, heavens, yes. Eugenia passed on and broke her heart.
That's really sad.
They have to be setting it up for.
Really.
Well, I mean, it is part of the novel, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they were setting it up for something like that.
Cutler married Lillian.
And I don't remember if that's part of Midnight Whispers, but that's definitely the story.
Yeah.
Oh, sad.
Which also now scares me that they're not going to do a prequel.
Maybe. Or making sure to not leave any loose ends just in case.
She left when I was a baby. Come with me. I'll show you the bad room.
This is where you were born.
Yep.
This looks like a prison cell.
Also, another plus for them releasing this series is like almost episodic. They can use the same locations and sets. It's not like if these have been movies that have been released a couple years apart. It would be really hard to get those same settings and situations.
Grandpa Booth locked her in here.
Little boy.
And I think we should note Charlotte's been terrific. The
Mhm.
character of
I'll
Charlotte.
show you the nursery.
She's great.
Yeah.
She's just what I picture her as.
Well, and that's the thing. It was always kind of hard for me to kind of really pin down Charlotte in my mind, but this is pretty much what I had in
Mhm.
mind. But I think this actress has definitely brought it to life. Every piece that I had, she's like put together as like a puzzle. It's like all together now, and I really get it.
Isn't she sweet? Yeah, she is.
Again, I think she's doing a great job as
Oh,
Christy.
Yeah, I do too. I'm warming up.
Well, now maybe that she's out of the setting with people that are roughly her age, playing her parents, and now that you can see her with adults,
Yes.
actual adults, I think that
That's
she's
perfectly.
a
love
very
this
good
series.
Christy.
They say
I
Mama
agree.
always fought the best for Lillian. Got it too.
And interestingly, again, the
Still don't
ghostwritten novels are a little bit more cinematic in their pacing, where you have time for everything, but these are really good paced. Like this right now, they're taking a lot of time with this, and it's nice because it gives you a chance to breathe with the story. Not everything has to be bam, 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 nothing, something else is happening. That's gonna be Homer, but it made me jump. Like, I was
Yeah.
like, oh.
Nice to meet you, Homer.
Which that's kind of how it was in the book too. It was like a suspense thing. Like you're almost like, what?
Yeah, you didn't know who
Jump
was
out,
lurking
yeah.
around.
He's Jefferson.
Do you know how to drive a tractor?
Some tea.
He's got the goat's mark on his neck.
I was looking for it. I didn't see it
It's
yet.
there. It's red.
Oh, there we go.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to go back home.
Well, at least unless they give a reason of why Bronson's not around.
Yeah.
I realized that he's Charlotte's son. He's your son too, isn't he?
Charlotte since forever. But we had to keep it quiet. Back then, there was laws against me and Charlotte being together. Come home one day to find Charlotte beside herself in grief. Emrik killed and there she is in the brightness. Hold around long enough. You're going to get bit.
I get what you're saying. Like they might be telling too much in case they don't do one. But I feel like again, it's a nice way to stoke the interest of having a justification to have a prequel series.
It's a bad nail.
I'll tell you, every time I'm like by a nail or something though, I always think of tetanus and I always think of Jefferson in Midnight Whispers.
Really?
Always.
I
Every single
always
time.
think of Bart.
Oh,
And if there
that's
be
interesting.
thorns.
That's interesting.
Because he gets one too.
He does. Yeah, for every reason though, it was always Jefferson that like stuck with me, and it still does to this day. If I see a rusty nail, I'm like,
I think of
tetanus,
Bart every
Jefferson.
time. Every time I see one.
And by the way, I don't need saving.
Well, the point is, they
I
found
think
out
you did when you were in New York.
the name the constellation out there.
Right?
You can't turn the monster into.
Christy.
Yeah, I saw a car kind of driving by.
I did too. I'm like, well, it's the 90s.
Yeah, but I was thinking, oh, Fern. Like maybe that's gonna be her.
I got you.
Morton, have you ever
Yeah,
worked on a
Martin.
farm before?
God, no.
I remember him being a real doof.
Oh,
Where
yeah.
have you been, princess? I'm broke. I don't have anything to give you. All right. Tell you what. Morty and I could use a little R&R. A day of pampering. You do what I say, and then we'll decide what I tell Uncle Philip. I like birds. Why are you doing this? Why not?
She's a good Fern.
She is, and for some reason in the novels, I always have a more shrill voice in my head. But no, she's really good. Solid. I know a lot of people. Well, I know I've seen a few comments about people wanting her to have short hair, so I'm sure they're going to resist that. But for me, the energy, essence, it's there,
Yeah.
Here.
and yet not over the top. And Fern is a character that can be a little flamboyant. Like it would be okay, it would be this, but I'm also okay that this actress is like playing it measured,
Start with such.
keeping it in line, but keeping it grounded in reality.
Harder, princess. Put your anger to work.
Do you remember that's what I told you? She always used to call her princess. Like there's a clear jealousy, so I'm glad they set that up a little bit more at the beginning.
Exactly makes Princess run from the Golden Princess still think you're better than me? Pink or red?
Although I remember Fern's lack of sensitivity about the Philip situation was disturbing in the books. Here, at least, there was almost sort of a like, maybe I shouldn't go too far. But in the book, she was almost sort of like, you should have just enjoyed it, did it with Philip, or saying he's cute, like, I don't know.
Yeah, it was very uncomfortable in the book.
I'm surprised they didn't go that route for this presentation, though.
I go. Oh, now.
I don't remember any of this happening. Do you?
Not quite like this.
You too. I want both of y'all out of here by tomorrow, you understand?
Like the doll thing definitely was happening, or she was tormenting. Fern was tormenting. Homer definitely scared Fern, but I don't remember him like grabbing her like that. But maybe something vague happened like that.
And Christy will put a concert for us.
Yeah, I remember Fern getting jealous here. The attention she was getting, even though Christy's miserable throughout the whole thing.
That was
Right.
fantastic. I am in awe.
Check on her. Not so fast, princess. I promised Morty some fun and games. One last bit of fun for her.
I'll go.
I definitely remember this from the book.
Mm-hmm.
This part did scare the
I was
crap
just
out
gonna
of
say
me
that,
in the
yeah.
novel.
Yeah.
Oh, it was terrifying. Because, like, your heart is just with Jefferson as you read this whole book.
It's so true.
It
and
really is.
It's not like, at this point I didn't realize that, but reading it in past, and I'm always kind of rereading it like, wait, does he survive? Because in, like, the Landry series, you lose a kid. It happens, you know?
Yeah.
I was also thinking, too, that, like, I feel like there's no resolution with Fern. I don't know if they'll give something in here, but again, Fern was bad in those past couple scenes, but not as awful as she was in the novel.
Yeah, she was
and
terrible.
I wouldn't have minded her being a little bit more awful for this. But I also remember it being frustrating that, like, she has a resolution with Philip and Aunt Bet, but nothing really with Fern.
Oh, our whole family, we just know where it's sick. And you drag Jefferson into this?
You're right, I'm glad they kept the little scar
Yeah.
for what Dawn did in the last one. I don't remember Gavin being taken away in handcuffs, though. He was just kind of sent home, I think.
Do not touch me. Ever.
Get in the car, or I'll make sure you never see your brother again.
And I don't, you know, he was so lost in fantasy, I don't remember him making those kind of threats.
Jefferson died. That's not funny, Richard. Don't listen to him. Jefferson is okay.
Are you
Oh, Richard, he was so
Richard was
terrible.
awful too, but I feel like Melody, I think that was her name, was just as terrible too. I don't remember her defending.
What you have pushed through these past few weeks, dragging our name through the mud, disappearing with Gavin, your uncle, I can barely hold my head up in town.
Good.
Don't pretend with me. The night Philip came into my room, I know you heard me screaming and you did nothing.
Good.
Your own husband assaulted me and you let it happen. How are you gonna hold your head up when that story gets out?
Good.
She did confront Bet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said I was wondering if there'd be any sort of payoff because Bet knew, but I like that she calls out that Bet knew.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Philip took her, I guess it was her party dress, and I remember that being specifically the dress that I was thinking, oh, yeah, that's right, because the twins ran amok in her room, I remember and stuff.
What's going on?
Hi. I wanted us to have a special night together.
Creep alert.
Where's that Bats?
He's a good Philip, though.
Really,
He really is.
I need to go.
And why would Aunt Bet leave?
Well, you know, we
I
don't
know.
we don't know yet. But I also think she's a really good Christie. She really sold me. Oh yeah, he's wearing his
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yes.
blazer, school
Yeah.
blazer.
Crazy.
As long as you need me.
Thank you, Bronson.
I was just thinking too, like, you know, as far as Bet's concerns about the hotel's reputation, something like this would probably destroy the reputation. But that's probably a good thing, because I think, like, the hotel being gone
Mr. Cutler
is
my
good
husband.
for Christie, because she, unlike Dawn, will get to pursue her music, and she's got Bronson to take care of her and Jefferson, so I never really thought of the hotel being done,
We're gonna get you through this,
but
okay? She can't
maybe
do
it
this
is
to us.
done.
You tell them he was home with me. You can't trust anything she says. She's a liar. Like,
Oh, Tom. You came back to me.
Ooh.
You came back to me.
he's the one.
Nothing will ever change that. We're in love, right? You're mine forever.
So crazy.
Come on. Just tell them that we love each other. Right, Tom?
That didn't happen in the book, though.
Well, none of what Aunt Bet said, I don't remember having the book, but pretty much the Philip stuff right there.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, for being such a completely ghost-written novel, it is so V.C. Andrews in terms of the flip of, like, you know, whereas Kathy and Christopher accepted their incestuous relationship, Heaven and Troy accepted it. This is the one where Dawn didn't, but this is maybe what would have happened to Christopher possibly, or this
Yeah.
if he hadn't gotten Kathy, or
That's
you know,
true.
the sort
Yeah.
of craziness.
Definitely
Philip
gives you
really
something
went,
to think about, yeah.
and Philip, you know, they said they did a great job with this little thing. Again, I don't know how I feel about the whole. I do kind of like it. It's a change from the novel, but it's a little bit more dramatic and exciting of a thing to have.
You in New York.
like I said, I was saying it completely not knowing, but like I always wanted a confrontation between Philip and Jimmy. So I'm interesting that they kind of that's the result of what the fire, why it happened, and all that. So it works.
An absolute triumph. I'm here for you, Christy Longchamp.
I'm here for you. Always.
Why didn't she want to call him Gavin Longchamp too?
Mhm.
One last song.
Right.
There you go. Of course.
I was like, and they still keep something incestuous alive, even though they're not related,
Like at all.
That's kind of cool that they're going to end with the dawn. So I was just thinking, like,
Yeah.
I'll say it in the outro, some of the stuff I was thinking about the fourth novel ending the story. But as an adaptation, it's good to see kind of Dawn there at the end. All right, and that brings us to the end of the Dawn Cutler series adapted by Lifetime. Overall, I think they did a really good job. What did you think about this one specifically, though?
I didn't connect as much to it. It wasn't my favorite. I definitely liked what they did. Once Dawn and Jimmy were gone, I really connected with the Christy character. But all in all, I think my favorite out of the whole series was probably Twilight's Child, to be honest. But it was great.
I feel kind of the same. One, I definitely agree. I think Twilight's Child was was the best of the adaptations. I feel like Secrets of the Morning, though, we were still really excited. Like, I was really excited about. Dawn was obviously great, especially because you had Donna Mills. The fourth book, the fourth story, and in this case, the fourth movie, I think it's always interesting with these, especially with, like, from Castile, Landry, and the Cutler series specifically. You have sort of the fourth story. It's like for you, it's almost like a gift, I think. Like, I know you don't really care for, like, endings. You like things to, like, even when they end, for so many media movies, you're always like, really, that's how it ends? And I'm always like, well, how do you want it to end? That's pretty much the end. What's nice about these is that the fourth book, you kind of get an end to the Dawn story, but you get to see what happened after Dawn with, like, how her daughter carries on and stuff. But it's true, you can only connect so much to this character, and by the time you do, that book's over and you've jumped to the prequel, and it's like, that's the real end. Now, in the Castile series, I will say it was nice in terms of Annie. You get a little bit more with her in the prequel because they sort of bookend Annie story to Web of Dreams, Lee's diary. So you get a little bit more with her, so you can kind of remember Annie a little bit more. But in terms of Pearl, in terms of Christy, there's only so much you can really connect. I do think the actress did a really great job, though, and I did connect her to the movie, but it did feel like just kind of an ending. It's kind of sad. You've lost Dawn and Jimmy. I'm sure people are going to have mixed emotions about the little added stuff with Bet and Philip kind of being the result of Dawn and Jimmy's deaths. I was fine with it. I think it adds a little bit more interesting, something texture to it.
I was fine with it.
Yeah, I don't think it's needed, but I thought it was a little bit more exciting for the story. I liked this one. I thought it was really paced out. I thought the little Jefferson did a good job.
It was fantastic.
I don't this Fern was good. I don't think she brought out the same like Fern-like qualities that the younger Fern brought out. But this one played it a little bit more with a subtle tone, which for quality wise, it's good. The person in me that wants a little bit more of a campy adaptation wouldn't have minded a little bit more of an over the top Fern. But it was fine.
Well, she is over the top, and that's what you're expecting.
Yeah.
But I do want to go back to your point about, Christy and Annie and kind of connecting with and I hate endings. So that's why I really, really love the Dollenganger series. Because you get the kids in the third book, which I always told you that was my least favorite book of this series because it's the kids.
Yeah.
But then you get Kathy and Chris's older grandparents up to their deaths.
Yes.
That's the ending I want.
And not premature deaths, into their 50s.
Yes.
I agree completely. If There Be Thorns is still probably my least favorite of the Dollenganger series, but as I've read them as I get older, a lot does happen in them, and I really have come to really enjoy just the story from it. And like I said, I really love the adaptation of it. But you're right. And if you think about it, at that point, Kathy's in her 30s. I think she's supposed to be about 36-ish at that point. And that's where these novels kind of end in the fourth book.
Yeah.
Dawn, Ruby, and even Heaven, it tends to be books 1, 2, 3 are from their ages of 15, 16 to about 22. Flowers of the Attic, the first book is 12 to 15. The next book is 15 to 27. The next book is 36 just 36,
Yeah.
but then you jump into the early 50s. So you do get a bit more. It's kind of a trade-off because these ones all prematurely die.
Well, didn't the Ghost Rider take over Fallen Hearts?
He did, yeah.
So then, they kill Heaven off and Logan.
Right.
Like in the 4th book. And then they do it again. And I'm like, why don't you just flip-flop? Like, keep them around. Like, there's more to write then.
Sure. But I guess it's also, right. But it would be like, well, then what's going to happen with this perfect relationship? Because, if Philip did something to Christy, she's just going to run to Dawn and Jimmy. But I feel like there still could be story there. I feel like there was a pressure to make them more exciting, like to have, okay, she's got to go on the run, got to go do this.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think as readers, we just want to see, if it's going to be from Christy's point of view, let's have all this, like in If There Be Thorns, all the secrets are coming out, but Dawn and Jimmy are there the whole time.
Yeah.
It's almost like, they, in this, Charlotte had to explain everything, and it's like, why not just have Dawn and Jimmy be around? And I get why they didn't in the film, because that's what they did in the books, but we're talking about the books. Like, why didn't the books just do that? But overall, I think the Cutler series was well done. I think it's just as good as the Landry series. Like you said, is it still, do you consider it the best one?
Yeah.
Okay, and I think that it's an A+ as well, but I also think the Landry series was an A+. It's no better or worse. I think that it was just as good, and it makes me happy that Lifetime has finally gotten their stride, except for what they did with Flowers in the Attic, The Origin last year. I thought it was really good. Like I said, parts 1, 2, and 3 were so good, and then they made some choices in the 4th one, and it's not just about, like, arbitrary changes. It's about losing characters.
Like whole plots and...
Right.
Crazy.
Right. It'd be like if they go back to do like the Meadows, but then they have, Bill Cutler's character dies at the end of that one, and it's like, well, how can Dawn ever be born? Like, it'd be the same thing, it's just, I don't know why they made those choices. But again, with this, they came back on track, and I'm hoping that they'll make Melody. I remember that was still one I read at the time.
Yeah.
I think I read the Hudson series, and I know I read through through the Wildflowers. I know there was like the Orphan series. I read that, the Wildflowers, and I think right around then I did read one that was later on about like a call girl and her like younger sister. It was just like a 2-book series. So there's some good stuff to come. But Melody, though, I still really liked. Although similarly to Midnight Whispers, I remember very specific like words and phrases being taken right out of Flowers in the Attic and like copy and pasted right into Melody, but it was still a good story. And that one also kind of changed up the formula a little. Yeah. It doesn't really, go the same arc. So I'm hopeful that that's the next one. Or, I mean, they did an adaptation of Rain, which I have on DVD, and it wasn't bad. I'm surprised that they didn't follow up with it. It had Faye Dunaway in it. Did I ever show? Did you watch that? So I wonder if they'll kind of do a redo on that. But all right. But what did you all think of the Cutler series? What did you think of this installment, Midnight Whispers? As always, if you like what you're seeing, please comment. Please give us a thumbs up, and please consider subscribing. And have a good one.
John Amos